I'm Allie. I'm calling from New Hampshire.
Allie, hold on for 1 second. Hold on for 1 second.
Sure.
Because I just saw this go by. I want to be able to do this. Gentrified Potato says, please, 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 can I get a shofar for my 1 year anniversary of sobriety? That's an accomplishment. There you go.
Yeah, so I'm calling because there's something that's been on my mind for a couple weeks now, basically since the debate, the vice president debate, because the moderators had said that more than 50% of the country is in support of mass deportation. And I've just been thinking about that nonstop since that, because I can't believe we're shitty people here, but I just can't believe that many people really think that something that's undoubtedly going to be violent and awful is the best way. And yeah, I just basically can't stop thinking about it. I was trying to get y'all's take on it.
I am a little bit skeptical that it's that high. I wouldn't be surprised if it's close, because there's no pushback. There hasn't been enough pushback on it. I mean, listen, I was listening, coming in today, and I listened to the AP News, and there was something they played of Trump where he was going, you're paying too much for money, you can't afford your house, you can't afford a car, the migrants are coming in. And I just thought, if you hear this enough, you start believing it, despite the fact that your own experience is not the case. You just assume that it's going on. And when the Democrats essentially decided, we're not going to push back on this narrative, which was a decision that the Biden administration made at one point. We're just not going to push back on this narrative. What we're going to do is we're going to, the legislation they had some good things in it, but it also had a lot of bad things in it. And that was the compromise. And that way we can be seen as trying to get stuff done and not, posturing. But they stopped pushing back on this narrative that we are overrun with immigrants. And part of that was
really frustrating part about it. It's I live in New Hampshire, famous border state, New Hampshire. And it's even people here are immigration is my number one issue and stuff. And it's just out of all the places it couldn't affect realistically, it's us. And I don't know, it's just very frustrating that we don't have anyone on the other side, except for you guys, and Hassan talks about the numbers of actual violent crimes caused by immigrants and stuff. But it's there's no one mainstream really who's actually pushing back against it.
There's no metric
to accept it.
There's no metric where immigrants aren't a net plus. If you want to look at what it does to Social Security, net plus. If you want to look at what it does for our economy, net plus. Immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than native-born Americans. Does it in certain instances require more social services at the beginning for, assimilation purposes? Maybe people don't speak English. Yes, but so what? I mean, if you check back in on Springfield, Ohio, in 5 or 6 years, that town is going to be significantly better off than it is today, than it was 2 years ago, and where it would have been. Is it easy to absorb new people into a city? No. There are, of course, but this is my hometown of Worcester, Mass. has grown. I don't know what it was. It went from 160,000 people, 40 years ago, now almost 210, 220,000. Cost of housing has gone up exponentially from there. Worcester didn't even drop. Real estate values didn't even drop in 2008 in Worcester because they never went up in the wake of the boom. It stayed the same all the time. real estate costs have gone up in Worcester because people came in because basically Boston ran out of room. But it's going to catch up. It's going to cycle through, and then there's going to be better stuff. And then, and here's this, Matt has posted this from actually a pretty good follow, this guy, Aaron Reichland Melnick. I think he's an immigration attorney.
Yeah, he's on the senior fellow for the Immigration Council now.
And it's a survey out of University of Maryland, finds when you explain to people what mass deportation is and propose a path to legal status as an alternative, mass deportation extremely unpopular, like super unpopular. And it's because when you say, if you say like, this immigrant problem, and people just assume, well, I've heard so many people talk about it, there must be a problem. And what's the easiest way to, well, just get rid of them. But of course, no, that's absurd. Aside from the horror that would be associated with cops and immigration officials, going door to door, ripping apart families, sending people away who are neighbors and friends and family. Aside from how barbaric that would be. And incidentally, once you build that apparatus, even if you could deport all these people, what do you think happens to that apparatus? It doesn't evaporate. They just find somebody else to do it to, right? That's why we, and so, but what you also is, you suffer from it. But yes, this is an example of why the notion of capitulating to a narrative because of electoral expediency is so stupid. Because the fact is that but in doing that, you exacerbate the problem, and you still do not escape the dynamic that the Republicans, that's one of their core values. They're always going to be perceived as being, more deportive or whatever, however you want to, describe that. So it's really, you create that vacuum. It's a real problem.
Yeah, I think it's just frustrating that the burden of disseminating this and breaking down those arguments and highlighting how violent and brutal it will be just kind of falls on normal people. My husband and I both try to explain to people, and it's just why isn't there any pushback from the people who actually can do something about this? So I think that's just the really frustrating part about that.
Yeah, it's
constantly
horrible.
Moving right.
Horrible. I agree with you. Appreciate the call.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.